At the beginning of the drama, we see a girl in a school uniform whose name is Yebun. Running, she reaches a place where a car accident had occurred. It turns out that Yebun's mom was in the car, and she had passed away. Seeing her mom's body, Yebun cries a lot. Yebun then arrives to live at her aunt's house, where her grandfather also lived, who was the area's veterinary doctor. Inspired by her grandpa, she decides to become a veterinary doctor. Then we see a scene from many years later. Yebun is working with her aunt, Miss Young, at their veterinary hospital. Miss Young asks her to go for a cow's checkup, so Yebun says, "Our hospital only sees pet animals, like dogs and cats, and that's why I don't want to see the cow." Miss Young explains, "The hospital hasn't been doing well for many years, so we'll have to treat livestock animals, like cows and pigs." On the other side, we see a detective whose name is Moon Jang. He gets transferred here from Seoul. When he reaches the police station, all the detectives are rushing somewhere. He asks, "What is the case?" And a detective says, "This is the violent crimes unit, so it's a violent case." Moon also goes to the site with them. Arriving at a place, all the detectives start taking out their cars to block the road. Just then, a girl's scream is heard from a distance. Then we see a cow come running, and a girl is sitting on its back, who is Yebun, screaming for help. The cow is then stopped. Moon asks, "What was the violent crime in this?" To which the detective says, "The cow was running so violently, what could be more violent than this?" Moon asks the detective, "What kind of town is this?" And he replies, "The people here are very nice, so crime never happens here." Moon gets worried because his plan was to increase his points by solving as many cases as possible in 1 month, so he could be sent back to Seoul. In the next scene, a man comes to Yebun's hospital whose cow was pregnant. Then, while she is checking the cow, a meteor shower begins, and a shooting star comes and hits Yebun's hand directly. When Yebun regains consciousness, she is in her bed. Her aunt comes running and tells her, "You have been sleeping for 3 days." Yebun is shocked. Going to the clinic, she picks up her cat and she starts seeing the cat's memories. At first, she drops the cat in fear, then tries again. As soon as she touches the cat's butt, she starts seeing memories. She picks up her dog. Yebun doesn't understand what is happening to her. Then she goes to a doctor for a checkup, and the doctor says she is perfectly fine. Then Yebun, confused, starts drinking when Okoi arrives there. Yebun says, "I think some spirit has possessed me. I'm seeing strange things." Okoi says, "You should meet a shaman." The next day, Yebun goes to meet a shaman. The shaman, upon seeing her, says, "I know you were unconscious for 3 days and that you are seeing strange things." Then he says, "You will have to become a shaman, otherwise something bad will happen to you and your family." Yebun refuses, saying, "I can't become a shaman." When she returns to the clinic, she finds out her grandfather has fallen down the stairs. The next day, she goes to the shaman and starts performing the rituals to become a shaman. The shaman says, "You will have to speak all your sorrows." Yebun says, "When I was little, my dad died. In high school, my mom committed suicide. Grandfather was against my mom and dad's marriage, so he doesn't like me. I took a loan to redecorate the hospital, but financial problems are increasing due to a lack of patience. Now I've spent all my savings on becoming a shaman." Hearing all this, the shaman gets emotional. Then he tells Yebun to perform a ritual in which she has to walk on sharp knives. Yebun tells the shaman, "You do it first and show me." As soon as the shaman takes a step, his foot gets cut, and he starts screaming. Yebun understands that the shaman is a fraud and takes her money back from him and returns. In the next scene, Yebun thinks, "I should see if my powers work on humans too." Seeing an opportunity, she touches a man's butt on the bus but sees nothing. She thinks of trying again, but as she touches him, someone handcuffs her. It's Moon. He takes her to the police station and asks, "Why were you misbehaving with the man?" Yebun says, "I am a psychic." So Moon lets her go with a warning. In the next scene, a man brings his dog to the clinic and explains that it hasn't been eating anything for a few days. The dog's age was 15 years, so Yebun thinks it's due to age, but as soon as she touches the dog's butt, she sees in its memories that the dog was deliberately not eating because it felt its owner worked so hard just for it. If there was less food, the owner wouldn't eat himself and would give it to the dog. The owner gets emotional and says to the dog, "I am alive only because of you. Only if you live well will I be able to live in peace." Then the dog eats the food. While leaving, Yebun gives the owner a bag full of dog food and says, "I will always do the checkup for free." Just then, Moon arrives there with a mattress because he is going to live in this building. While carrying the mattress, Moon loses his balance and is about to fall when Yebun catches him to save him. And at that moment, she sees Moon's memories. Moon thinks, "Yebun touched me on purpose." So he pushes her to the ground and says, "You are so shameless." But Yebun thinks, "This means I can see human memories too." Just then, Okahoy arrives there. Without saying anything, Yebun suddenly touches her from behind, but this time she sees nothing. She thinks, am I going crazy? The next day, a man brings his dog to Yebun and explains that for the past few days it's not eating anything, whereas before it was very interested in food. Yebun uses her power to see the dog's memories and finds out that it runs away from home and eats things from people, which is why it doesn't feel hungry at home. Yebun tells the man there must be a hole in your house's boundary from where the dog gets out and says, fix the hole and the dog will start eating at home. The man doesn't understand how this treatment was done without medicine or injection. He also gets angry and thinks, this doctor is fooling people. But when he goes home and checks, there really is a hole in the boundary. Now, this news spreads throughout the city that Yebun is a very good animal doctor, and a crowd of patients gathers at the hospital. With so many patients coming in just half a day, Yebun and her aunt are both happy. Then a boy named Sun Woo comes with a small kitten. Sun Woo explains that he found the kitten on the street and has just come for a checkup. Yebun uses her powers to see the kitten's memories and finds out how Sun Woo saved it. Yebun thinks he is so kind and handsome. She does a proper checkup of the kitten and tells him that everything is fine, it just needs vaccines. Yebun asks, where do you live? And he tells her, in this area, and adds, I work at the convenience store in front. Hearing this, Yebun becomes happy. Then the next day, Yebun is at the hospital. The same man whose pregnant cow case it was before comes again. This time, another cow had a problem. Yebun didn't want to go, but her aunt says, we shouldn't refuse business. Arriving there, they ask about the cow, and the man says, it ran away on the night of the meteor shower. Yebun checks the cow and says, it will be fine with one injection. On the way back, that man falls, and Yebun notices that his hair, which was thick before, is now falling out. He tells her, something strange happened to me on the day of the meteor shower. Whenever I touch someone, I see their memories. And the more I use the power, the more my hair falls out. Hearing this, Yebun gets worried about her own hair. Going back to the hospital, she decides to keep the hospital closed for some time. The next day, her aunt asks her to go to a restaurant. As soon as they leave the house, a van stops near them. Yebun thinks, we have to go in the van. As soon as she sits in the van, a man gives a lot of money to her aunt. Yebun wants to stop her aunt, but they forcibly take her to an island. There, a man says, lunch is ready. Scared, she goes inside and sees that many varieties of flatfish have been made. She forgets her tension and starts eating. Just then, some people arrive, among whom is a boy named Yu Jok, who used to study with Yebun in elementary school. While eating, Yebun asks, why is everyone eating so little? Yu Jok was about to tell her when a man takes everyone to one place. It turns out that flatfish farming is done here, and their job is to vaccinate the flatfish. A few days pass, and Yebun understands why everyone didn't eat the flatfish that day, because that's what they always got here. On the other side, a water truck passes in front of Moon, and he asks why there are so many trucks. Detective Baydok says there is an island nearby from where fish are distributed. Moon then reaches the fish farm with Baydok and starts watching the activity secretly. He sees that the farm's man is buying some white powder from someone. Moon suspects that drug dealing happens here. The next day, he comes with a police team and arrests everyone. In the investigation, they find a briefcase containing white powder. At the police station, it is revealed that it wasn't drugs, but fish food. Moon tests it and also feels it's not drugs, but he says everyone will be released after the investigation. There, Yu Jok is sleeping, so Yebun is about to put a blanket on him when her hand touches Yu Jok's butt, and she sees his memories in which he is torturing a girl. Then, an assemblyman comes and asks, release everyone, so Moon lets everyone go. Going home, Yebun searches if any girl has been kidnapped or is missing, but finds no results. In the next scene, the girl from the vision is running away from someone, but someone drags her by her hair. On the other side, Yebun realizes that the memories of Yu Jok she had seen, in which he was torturing a girl, were true. She runs to Moon and sees him pressed against a wall in fear. She slowly goes inside and sees that he was scared of a cat. When the cat goes near him, he screams loudly and then starts sneezing. Actually, he has an allergy. He says, I'm allergic not just to cats, but to every furry animal. Yebun then says to Moon, I suspect that my college friend has kidnapped a girl. Moon asks, how do you know all this? So Yebun says, I just get visions. If you don't trust me, check for yourself. A 20-year-old girl with long hair will definitely be found missing. Yebun then recalls her vision, recognizes the setup, and says, that girl is probably an online streamer. Moon still doesn't take Yebun seriously and pushes her out, closing the door. Yebun then gets Yu Jok's address from her college senior and reaches there. Then she calls him saying, it's been a while, so I called. From the background, she understands that he is not at home. She starts to open his gate when he suddenly appears behind her. They both then go to a cafe. Yebun says, I came to your house to surprise you. She asks, "Do you live with someone?" He replies, "I live alone." After drinking coffee, Yoo-juk is tying his shoelace, and Ye-bun thinks this is the right chance to touch his butt. But her foot slips and she accidentally touches another man's butt, and she starts seeing sexual visions. Then, reaching Yoo-juk's house, she coaxes his cats towards her with the lure of food. Ye-bun touches those cats and gets a vision of a chair. She remembers that in her other vision, the girl was tied to this very chair. Then, in a room, she sees that very chair. It looked as if a girl had been tied up there. Just then, Yoo-juk returns home, and Ye-bun quickly hides in the bathroom. There was a small window in the bathroom from where she escapes, but Yoo-juk sees the broken window and understands someone was there. Then, as Ye-bun is returning home, Moon comes to her, and Ye-bun asks for his help. Moon slowly cuts an opening in the window glass. Ye-bun says, "I only told you that I am a psychic, but you didn't believe my words." Then she tells Moon about one of his past memories, and Moon asks, "How do you know this?" Ye-bun says, "I saw it." Then Ye-bun starts browsing videos to find the streamer and sees the same setup in one video. She notices that the doorknob in Yoo-juk's house is the same as in this streamer's house. The streamer had also mentioned her address in a video, so Ye-bun immediately reaches that address and calls Moon, saying, "Please believe me this time. I am at the kidnapped girl's address." Ye-bun tells the address and says, "I'm trusting you and going inside first. You come quickly." Just then, the police captain tells everyone, "We have a lead on the drug dealer, Chung." Moon says, "Do whatever you have to do," and leaves. Ye-bun still goes upstairs and sees that the house door was open. She goes inside and sees the streamer's room. Just then, Yoo-juk appears from behind and smiles at her. Actually, Yoo-juk had installed cameras in his house, so he knew that Ye-bun had entered his home and was expecting her to come here as well. Ye-bun asks him about the girl, and he says, I tried to convince her a lot, but she wasn't ready to live in my house." Now he shouts at Ye-bun. She tries to run, but he chokes her. Just then, Moon arrives there and stops him. Yoo-juk had kept the girl on the balcony whom Moon and Ye-bun rescue. Ye-bun asks, "Now, do you believe my words?" Moon says, "I only came because I was worried about the victim." Moon then gets a call from someone and says on the phone, "Looks like I'll solve the case quickly and come back." Moon tells Ye-bun, "Since you helped me catch a criminal, I will give you a treat." Ye-bun happily goes with him. In the next scene, Moon and Ye-bun are at a restaurant after catching the kidnapper. Moon asks, "When you touch someone's butt, what do you see? Do you have any control?" Ye-bun says, "I can only see the vision that they want to show, but even within those clips, I can choose." Moon asks, "Can you see what happened at a specific time?" Ye-bun didn't know herself, so Moon says, "You should test what kind of clips you see with what kind of touch." Ye-bun then tells Okoye about her power, and she offers her own butt so Ye-bun can test all her powers. As soon as she touches lightly, she sees memories from a week ago, and when she presses her hand harder, she sees memories from 3 to 4 months ago. Ye-bun realizes that she was also choosing from multiple memories what to see, and the harder she pressed, the older the memory appeared. On other side, a hospital scene is shown where the streamer, whom Moon and Ye-bun had rescued, was admitted. She was behaving completely normally and was even live streaming in this condition so that people would give more donations out of sympathy. In next scene, Moon goes to Ye-bun and says, "I saved your life, so in return, you should help me." He places a lot of case files in front of her and says, "You will solve all these cases with your powers so I can go back to Seoul." Ye-bun says, "I want to help, but there's an issue I didn't tell you about. Whenever I use my powers, my hair starts to fall out." But Moon had a solution for this too. He gets ready to shave all her hair. Seeing this, Ye-bun says, "There's no need for this. Let some hair fall if it must." In the next scene, Moon takes Ye-bun to many places where she keeps touching people's butts to check who the culprit is. Ye-bun touched so many butts all day that her hands started to hurt. She tells Moon, "My hands are very delicate. Sorry, but I can't help anymore." She goes to Sun Woo on the pretext of getting a bandage. He sees her hands, applies medicine, and then asks her to have dinner with him. During dinner, he tells her, "This city is my mom's hometown, and after her death, I shifted here because she always used to say that the people here are very nice." He makes Ye-bun his friend and tells her, "I am interested in someone these days." At that time, Ye-bun doesn't ask anything, but on the way back she keeps thinking, could it be me that he's interested in? She thinks, "Let me check once," and tries to touch Sun Woo's butt. At that very moment, Moon is watching all of this from above and even makes a video. But why isn't Ye-bun seeing anything? She starts to get scared, thinking, have my powers disappeared? She looks at her hand with a magnifying glass and realizes that because of Moon, her fingerprints have been scraped off. On the other side, Moon comes to the assemblyman's office because a theft had occurred the previous night. Moon was happy to get a high-profile case. The assemblyman says, "Our register has been stolen," which had the names and amounts of all the donors. Moon suspects that some inside person must have committed the theft. He asks the assemblyman, "Do you suspect anyone?" But he says, "No." Then he goes to Yebun, and she says, "I can't use my powers, and it's because of you." Moon then brings a lot of hand products. Then he gets gloves from Sun Woo's store. Moon goes back and massages Yebun's hands, and Yebun, using her powers as an excuse, also gets her shoulders massaged. At that moment, Ok arrives, and Yebun touches her to check her powers. She sees in the memory that she has started to like Moon. The next day, Moon takes Yebun to the assembly office where a man was sleeping outside who had probably seen the culprit go inside. The man was very hungry, so Yebun feeds him, and, making an excuse, touches his butt. She finds out that the man had seen the culprit but had fallen asleep at that time. Then Moon takes Yebun to a place where both parties' election campaigns were going on. Moon says, "Touch everyone's butt here because one of them is the culprit." Yebun refuses and says, "You saved my life, and I'm thankful for that, but it was your duty. I can't help anymore." Moon then blackmails her by showing her the video in which she was about to touch Sun Woo's butt. When she touches the assemblyman's close associate's butt, she sees that he had gone there on the day of the theft. At that moment, a lady is standing far away. Yebun throws a slipper from a distance and makes her fall. Then she touches her butt and sees something that makes her a little worried. But when Moon asks, she says, "I didn't see anything." Later, she recalls the memory and sees a man's shoe who was leaving the office. Yebun recognizes the shoe. They were her grandfather's. In the next scene, the streamer whose life was saved is a little distracted while driving and has an accident. She is waiting for help after calling someone when a man arrives whose whole body is covered. He asks for her phone, then drags her to a secluded place and attacks and kills her with a knife. On the other side, we see Yebun. From the woman's memories, she had found out that her grandfather had gone to the assembly hall and stolen the register. When her grandfather leaves the house, she goes to his room and starts looking for the register. Meanwhile, her grandfather, upon coming out, realizes he forgot his phone inside, so he goes back in. Inside, Yebun finds the register, which contained the names of the donors, and by the time her grandfather came inside, she had already left. But she accidentally left the door slightly ajar, which her grandfather noticed. She then reaches the assembly hall office to return the register. After placing the document at the door, as she turns, her grandfather is standing there. He asks for the document back, so Yebun asks, "Why did you do this? Is Mr. Jang like a son to you? Did you do all this for money?" He replies, "You'll find out everything later," and pushes Yebun aside to take the document. Yebun first tries to stop him nicely, then says a bit angrily, "Why do you never listen to me? Why did you keep me with you when you don't even want to see me?" Yebun's grandfather leaves from there without saying a word. The next day at the police station, a detective tells Moon the assemblyman found the document, which was in his own safe. Moon finds it strange because they themselves had searched the safe. He still wanted to find the thief, but Mr. Jang had asked to close the case. In the next scene, we see Ok Hoi with her dad. They were talking when a man named Ali arrives and says, "A fish finder has been stolen from our boat." Moon is called for this. He asks, "Do you suspect anyone?" And Ok Hoi's mom names Ali, explaining a similar theft had occurred where he used to work before. But Ok Hoi's dad says, "I don't believe that Ali could do something like this." Moon then goes to Yebun and asks, "Work with me." Yebun, who was worried about a puppy because its owner had buried it alive, asks Moon, "Help me find the owner," saying, "My powers aren't working." Moon makes fun of her powers, so Yebun tells him, "My powers have upgraded. Before, I used to see in black and white, but now I see in color." They both realize this happened because Moon had massaged her hands, meaning taking care of her hands could upgrade her powers. Yebun then goes to a salon with Moon and gets her hands pampered, making Moon pay for it. Upon returning, when she touches the puppy, the memories now appear in a much clearer quality, as if the resolution has upgraded. So she then goes with Moon and gets a beautiful ring. This time, upon touching the puppy, she could browse the memories by date, but still couldn't find anything useful. Then she buys and eats a lot of supplements from Moon, and this time, upon touching the puppy, she can see its address. They both reach that area with the puppy. Yebun lets the puppy loose, and following it, they reach the puppy's owner's apartment. Moon then arrests the man for animal cruelty, and Yebun keeps the puppy with her. Then, for his case, Moon asks Yebun to touch Ali's puppy to see if he stole the fish finder. She then, on the pretext of removing chewing gum, touches the puppy and tells Moon, "I didn't see anything about the theft, but he was at a coffee shop the whole day. Yebun also adds, nowadays he meets a man I don't know what they talk about because they speak in another language, maybe Arabic. Getting no help from Yebun, Moon forcefully tries to take the ring from her hand. Okay Hui, watching all this from her shop, gets angry at Yebun because she likes Moon. So Yebun clarifies, there's nothing like that between us. I'm just helping him find the thief. Meanwhile, Moon brings a book for Yebun so she can learn Arabic. Reluctantly, Yebun tries, which frustrates her. To freshen her mood, she goes to meet Sun Woo. There she finds out that Sun Woo knows Arabic. She requests, teach me a little. Sun Woo agrees. Then he teaches Yebun Arabic, but Yebun couldn't memorize it. With great effort, Yebun learns to pronounce Arabic words a little. She stays up all night and writes down on paper the things that were said in Ali's memories. Then she goes to Sun Woo and, showing it to him, asks, what does this mean? He then explains, my mom is sick and needs surgery, so I need money. Yebun, happy, goes and tells Moon, Ali's mom needs surgery. Moon goes and asks Ali, I heard your mom needs surgery. Do you have the money? The color drains from Ali's face, so Moon says, I know you didn't do this alone. Who else is involved? Ali names someone, so Moon sends Yebun to touch his puppy so she can find out about the whole gang. Yebun quickly touches his puppy and runs, and they both reach the place seen in his memories. There she sees the man from Ali's memory. Despite being told not to, Moon goes in alone to arrest him and a lot of people come out from inside. Yebun tries to run, but they come and catch her and they tie up both of them. Then they are talking among themselves. We do steal, but we don't harm people. Another says, we can't leave them alive, we'll go to jail, we have to get rid of them. Yebun, listening to their conversation, understands a little and tells Moon, they are going to throw us in the water. Moon says, we have to get out of here. He tries to free himself but can't. Just then, those people come there. Ali is with them. They put both of them in a boat and take them to a lake, and in the middle of the lake, they throw them into the water. Both start drowning. Just then, someone swims towards them and saves them. It's Ali. In the next scene, we see that Ali accepts the theft and apologizes to Okahoi's dad. Okahoi's dad forgives him. Then we see some people who are fishing. They didn't know, but a little distance away from them, a girl's body is lying. In the next scene, Aunt Young tells Yebun, our underwear is missing. Yebun says, it must have blown away with the wind. Then we see a scene at the police station where many women have come with complaints that their underwear is being stolen. In the midst of this, Moon gets a call from his friend who tells him about a girl's case whose death was due to a drug overdose. Then upon checking, it is found that she has a butterfly tattoo on her hand. So Moon mentions a man named Beck, saying, this is his work, but no evidence against him is ever accepted. He probably blackmails the prosecutor, which is why every case against him is closed, citing insufficient evidence. Moon's friend says, ever since you left, Beck has been doing whatever he wants without any restraint. In the next scene, Yebun is going to a farm to check on a cow, and Moon offers her a lift, which she accepts. After a while, she falls asleep in the car. Then when she wakes up, she sees that she is in Seoul. Moon had deliberately brought her for his case. Yebun gets angry. You just kidnapped me. Then her eyes fall on a beautiful dress and she forgets everything. She hadn't brought her wallet, so she asks Moon for money. Moon ignores her and points towards a car, saying, the man who is about to get out of this car, you have to touch his butt and find out what he is planning. It's Beck, who was a gangster, and his men were with him. Moon goes straight towards him and tells his men, if anyone touches me, I will kill everyone. Moon goes to Beck and, on the pretext of hugging him, sticks chewing gum on his butt. Yebun is with Moon and, on the pretext of removing the chewing gum, touches his butt and sees his memories. She slowly tells Moon he has bought a lot of fishing boats. Moon sends her for shopping and goes inside to talk to Baek himself. From Baek's memories, Yebun finds out that Moon's transfer happened because of him. Moon mentions the dead girl to him, but Baek says he knows nothing about it. Moon then mentions the fishing boats and asks, you don't have a fish restaurant, so what will you do with so many fishing boats? Baek says nothing, so Moon leaves, saying, I'll be back soon. Meanwhile, the underwear theft wasn't stopping, and everyone is told that from tonight, they will stand guard until the thief is caught. Moon reluctantly has to go with everyone. Detective Young Mook was sure that the theft would definitely happen and where the underwear was hung to dry. And that's exactly what happens. The thief steals from there and runs. Everyone runs after him, but he was so fast that only young Mook is left behind. Moon, after going a little distance, is looking around when the thief hits him on the head with something and runs away. Even when morning comes, Moon doesn't let anyone go home. He goes out with Young Mook to investigate. Then Moon asks for Yebun's help for his investigation. Yebun says, the thief wasn't found, how can I help? Moon tells her to touch his butt so she can see something that Moon might have missed. But Yebun can't resist and also sees Moon's old memories, in which he had gone to the police station with his friend where Seong was brought for underage drinking. He always used to get into trouble, but Moon would save him. After turning 18, Seong had improved a little, and seeing this, Moon was happy. Then, in another memory, Moon had gone to catch a gangster, and there he met Yang-gil, who worked with them. At that time, someone had hit him on the head, and Yang-gil took the opportunity and ran away. Moon asks Yebun, "Did you see any other details?" She replies, "Not clearly." She tries again, and this time she focuses only on the thief and finally sees and recognizes the thief's face. Moon takes her to his house. Moon goes inside to arrest him. The man jumps out of the window and runs, so Moon also runs after him. Finally, he catches him. Then Moon sees someone's shadow. He goes forward and sees Yang-gil in front of him. Moon asks, "What are you doing here?" Without saying anything, he stabs a knife into Moon's stomach and runs away. Yebun runs to Moon. She starts to call the police, but Moon refuses. She somehow takes him to the hospital. At the hospital, Young-mook and the detectives ask if she saw anything. Yebun denies it. Moon asks, "You didn't tell anyone, did you?" Yebun says, "You cared for him so much, then how could he stab you?" Moon understands that Yebun has seen his old memories besides the thief's. Then we see Yebun, who has brought comics for Moon. In the elevator, she sees Yang-gil, who is about to go to Moon, but stops upon seeing people. He leaves through the stairs. Yebun follows him. She calls Moon, but he doesn't pick up. So she calls Young-mook and says, "The one who stabbed Moon is Yang-gil." Suddenly, he appears in front of her. He grabs her hand and takes her outside, asking, "Why are you following me?" Yebun says, "I know that you stabbed Moon." Yang-gil asks, "Is he okay? Is it not too serious?" She asks, "You two were close, then why did you do this?" Yang-gil starts to run, so she blocks his path. Just then, Yebun touches his butt and sees that Bayek had sent him to kill Moon. Yang-gil remembers a memory in which Moon had shown him an old wound on his stomach from a knife attack. Moon had said, "If someone hits me in this exact spot, nothing will happen to me." That's why Yang-gil had stabbed him in that exact spot, because he didn't want to kill Moon, only to save him. Yebun understands everything. She says, "Go to Moon and tell him everything," but he refuses and leaves. By then, Young-mook arrives. Yebun says, "I'm sorry, I made a mistake." At the hospital, Yebun tells Moon everything, that Yang-gil had stabbed him only to save him. But Moon says, "It doesn't make a difference. He is a criminal." Just then, Yang-gil enters the room, covered in blood, in a very bad condition. He apologizes to Moon. Yebun touches his butt and sees that another man had attacked him before. Then, Yang-gil passes away. Moon's condition was still not fully recovered, yet he starts to go for the investigation. Yebun tries to stop him, but he doesn't stop, so Yebun also gets into the car, saying she will go with him. Moon goes straight to Baek's place with Yebun and starts hitting him. Yebun stops him. Moon says, "You killed Yang-gil." Baek was denying it, so Yebun says, "Let me check. I will tell you who killed him or not." Yebun touches Baek's body and sees that he had given the order to kill Moon, but he had no hand in Yang-gil's murder. Moon still wasn't believing it, so Yebun says, "I saw everything. Don't you trust my word?" Moon says, "I trust you, but there are many other reasons to kill him." Moon then moves forward to hit Baek again, when his detective friend arrives there with another detective. Moon thinks they have come to arrest Baek, but they arrest Baek along with Moon, saying that someone has filed a report, so they have no option. While going with the police, Baek looks at Yebun very carefully. Then we see a scene at the Seoul police station where Moon was locked up. Young-mook comes and tells him that Yang-gil's killer randomly stabbed him. He didn't know exactly where to stab or how deep. If Baek had to kill him, why would he send such a person? He would have sent a professional. Later, Moon's friend comes there. He had found out about Bayek's boat and learned that Bayek buys fishing boats and uses them for drug trafficking. He asks Moon, "How do you know about this? Do you have an informant?" Moon looks at Yebun, who is sleeping there, and says, "Yes, I have an informant who knows everything." The next day, Moon tells Yebun there was no CCTV or eyewitness where Yang-gil died, and no fingerprints or footprints either. Now I only have hope from you. I have to catch whoever killed Yang-gil, so please help me. Moon reaches the crime scene with Yebun. Yebun says, "There isn't even a dog or cat here. I can't help without touching someone." Just then, they see a snake there. Moon catches all the snakes in the area and brings them, asking Yebun to touch them. They don't even know where a snake's butt is. She starts touching the snake all over. Finally, upon touching one snake, she sees the killer who had killed Yang-gil. Yebun tells Moon, "When I had touched Yang-gil, I had also seen a man in a raincoat, and I am seeing the same man now." She describes the raincoat. She also mentions that the killer wasn't drunk, but his walk was a bit strange. Moon takes Yebun to a store where she confirms that it was a similar raincoat. But the problem was that almost every man in the city had a similar raincoat. Moon says it wasn't raining on the day of the murder, which means the killer wore the rain poncho so that he could easily remove the blood later. This means he had planned the murder in advance. Meanwhile, Yebun sees her aunt using a knife and remembers that the killer had also used a similar knife. She takes the knife and reaches the police station, whispering in Moon's ear, the killer had a similar knife. Then it turns out that this knife is very common. Moon says, one thing is for sure. The killer is a resident of this city. In the next scene, Yebun is checking a puppy and sees a dead body in its memory. She then goes to that location, and indeed, a dead body is lying there. Forensics reveal that it wasn't a suicide but a murder. But the body was decomposed, making identification difficult. But it looked like someone had randomly stabbed it. Later, it is found that the body belongs to the streamer whom Yebun and Moon had saved earlier. Moon asks the streamer's manager, who tells him, I last saw her 2 weeks ago when she was discharged from the hospital. Moon asks, you didn't contact her in these 2 weeks? The manager says, it was normal for her. She often used to disappear like this. From the manager, Moon finds out about her boyfriend. He asks the boyfriend, who says she was supposed to come but didn't. From the manager, Moon also finds out she had gone to a convenience store. Moon goes to the store where Sun Woo was working. He says, I remember that girl. She had even given me her number. Moon asks, did you call the number? Sun Woo denies it. On CCTV, Moon sees her car when she was leaving. From the car's call history, Moon gets the number of an auto repair shop. Moon goes there and the owner says, when I went to fix the car, no one was there, so I brought the car. Moon finds out where the car accident happened. He goes to check, but finds nothing. Then we see Detective Na and Yu. Then we see Moon. He returns, and Yebun is waiting for him. Moon says, so far, we only know that her car had an accident on that day. Moon suspects that the person who killed Young-gil might also be her killer because both were killed with the same type of weapon. Then we see Yebun. She goes out alone at night to see a patient. Then Moon comes and goes with her saying, I need you. Yebun is happy to hear this. But Moon continues, until the killer is found. Moon asks for Yebun's help. Yebun asks, what can I do? Moon says, you will have to touch everyone in the town. In the next scene, Yebun tells Moon that a ritual is happening in town to drive away negative energy. She takes Moon there so he can touch more people. Yebun is about to touch everyone when suddenly something starts happening to the shaman. It seemed from his body that the spirits of Sia and Young-gil had possessed him. His voice also changes. He goes to Moon and says, the man who killed me is here. Saying this, the shaman faints right there. Then when the shaman regains consciousness, Sun Woo was taking care of him. He asks what happened. He only remembers that he was performing the ritual, but he doesn't remember anything he said after that. Sun Woo tells him the whole story and also mentions that he had a fever all night. Meanwhile, Yebun has come to Okhoi's place. They start talking about what happened at the ritual. Yebun says, it's possible the killer was really there. So Okhoi says, yes, he would have wanted to know about the investigation too. Yebun says, the killer must have been keeping an eye on the police too. Okhoi points out, then he must have seen you too with Detective Moon looking for evidence. Now Yebun realizes that she must have come to the attention of the serial killer, so her life is also in danger. Just then she gets a call from Moon. He says, we should get to work. You have to touch 1,000 people in one day, right? Yebun says, sorry, but when I woke up today, my power disappeared, so I can't help you. If my power ever comes back, I'll call you. After hanging up, Yebun gets a message from Moon, which says that he is right outside her clinic. To avoid him, Yebun thinks of escaping through the window. But as soon as she opens the window, Moon is right there. Actually, Moon had understood that her story about losing her power was a lie. Then Yebun tells him that she could be the serial killer's next target. What about you? You have a weapon and you can fight, but what about me? Moon says, I am your weapon. Do you think I'll let anyone do anything to you? Then Yebun gets ready to go with Moon. In the next scene, we see a girl named Erin. She was going somewhere on her scooter when a man wearing a raincoat appears in front of her. Erin tries to run, but the man pounces on her. Then we see Erin's boss. When she doesn't return, her boss thinks she has run away. Then, in the next scene, we see the police station where a girl tells Moon that she needs to talk about something. Yebun is also there. The girl says, my name is Ji-suk and I work with Erin at the coffee shop. She says, Erin can't run away anywhere. Something must have happened to her. Ji-suk requests Moon's help for Erin and says, the poor girl already has a lot of problems in her life. Her brother got lost because of her, so she regrets it to this day. Hearing this story, Yebun gets emotional and promises, we will definitely find Erin. In the next scene, Moon goes out to check and calls Yebun to meet him outside a hospital. Yebun is at Sun Woo's workshop with him then. Then Yebun gets a call from Moon. She goes outside to talk and Moon asks, you haven't reached the hospital yet? So Yebun starts making some excuses. Moon says, tie your shoelaces? Yebun sees that Moon is right there. He doesn't even let Yebun say bye to Sun Woo and takes her with him. Then Moon asks Yebun, do you like Sun Woo? She accepts it. Moon says, you've just met him. You don't even know what kind of person he is. Yebun says, people who look like him can't be bad. To this, Moon says, people who look like him are often psychopaths. Both of them come to the coffee house to meet Erin's boss. Ji-suk is also there. Her boss kept saying that Erin has run away to her hometown. Moon tells Yebun to touch her and check. So Yebun, without any excuse, directly touches her butt. In her memories, Yebun only found out that Erin had never mentioned going to her hometown. Just then, Jisuk comes out and says, "Don't take my boss's words seriously. She just doesn't want to involve the police." Yebun, upon seeing Jisuk's key ring, remembers that Sun Woo had also opened his workshop with a similar ring. Upon asking, Jisuk says that Erin had made such a ring for herself and for her. Yebun tells Moon that she had seen a similar ring with Sun Woo. So Moon forcibly takes her outside Sun Woo's store and says, "Go and touch him." Yebun, on the pretext of removing chewing gum, touches Sun Woo's butt and sees that he had received the key ring from someone else. She comes out and tells Moon that Sun Woo had bought a secondhand laptop and the seller had given the keychain for free. Yebun also mentions that the person who saved her seemed to be a high school student, so perhaps he was driving Erin's scooter. Now, to find the student, Yebun takes Ok Hui's help. Her brother was a high school teacher, so she brings him so that Yebun can touch his butt and find the boy among the school students. Upon touching him, she sees him and also finds out his name. Moon goes to that student and asks about the scooter. He says, "I didn't steal the scooter, but found it lying somewhere." He also gives the address from where he found the scooter. Moon and Yebun go to this address and find bloodstains and a blood-stained knife. They notice that there was a CCTV there too. Yebun was completely sure that the serial killer must have killed Erin. Then we see a scene at the police station. The blood on the knife is tested, and the CCTV footage clearly shows that the man in the raincoat had attacked Erin. Moon then goes to the place where Erin had last gone to deliver coffee. The man there didn't remember anything, so Moon calls Yebun for help. Yebun, on the pretext of removing a sticky gum from his butt, touches him and sees which way Erin had gone after delivering the coffee. Yebun says that whenever she came to deliver coffee here, she would go in that direction. The coffee shop couldn't be reached from that direction, so Moon thinks that she must have gone to deliver coffee somewhere else. Then going further, Yebun realizes where this path leads. The path led to Gwang Shik's farm. Arriving there, Moon asks Gwang Shik about Erin. Did she ever come for a delivery? Gwang Shik denies it and says he only knows her from the coffee shop. Yebun understands that Gwang Shik was lying because once when she had touched his butt, she had seen in his memories that he and Erin were close and she used to come here often. Yebun, on some pretext, tries to touch Moon's shoulder, but Yebun stops him because she knew he could see her memories. After leaving from there, she tells Moon about Gwang Shik's power and about Erin's memories. Then, after some time, he leaves to go somewhere, and they both follow him. Reaching a marketplace, he seems to disappear, so they both split up to find him. Yebun sees him leaving in his truck, so she follows him in a taxi and on the way, calls Moon to tell him where she is going. While talking, she was following him, but her phone's battery dies. She is checking it when suddenly Gwang Shik appears in front of her. He asks Yebun, "You were following me?" Yebun says, "I know you lied about Erin." Just then, Moon arrives there. But ignoring both of them, he goes inside and calls out for Erin to come out. Erin comes out with him, and Yebun is surprised to see her. Moon explains that the bloodstains and murder weapon were placed as if they were deliberately put there. Gwang Shik then explains why they did this. Actually, Erin owed her boss a lot of money. She wanted to pay it back, but the boss refused to take it because she wanted to keep making Erin work on the pretext of the money. To save her, the two of them faked Erin's death. Moon starts to take both of them to the station. Before leaving, Gwang Shik tells Yebun, "When I touched your shoulder, I saw in your memory that on the night of the meteor shower, besides us, someone else was also there. Meaning, there is someone else who has powers like them, and it could be anyone." The episode begins with the Assembly election day, and many people have arrived to vote. Assemblyman Mr. Cha was meeting his supporters at that time. On the other side, we see Yebun at the police station where Gwang Shik and Erin are both taking the blame to save each other. Moon tells them, "I won't press criminal charges against you, but you have confused the police by doing this, so you will have to pay a fine." Yebun had just left the police station when she gets a message from Jisuk asking about Erin. Yebun calls her to the office and tells her that Erin is completely fine. Jisuk is happy to know that Erin is safe. Erin and Gwang Shik had just left the police station when her boss arrives there with her thugs. A thug grabs her by the hair and starts to take her away, and her boss tells her, "Come with us quietly or your boyfriend will get beaten up too." When Erin's boss was taking her, Jisuk was also there. And seeing her, Gwang Shik understands that she told her boss about Erin. He goes and shouts at Yebun, "Why did you tell Jisuk about Erin?" She's with her boss, and now they've taken her to the coffee shop again. Hearing this, Yebun is very surprised because until now, she thought Jisuk was Erin's good friend. Yebun goes to the coffee shop and meets Jisuk, saying, "I trusted you and told you about Erin, so why did you tell your boss?" Jisuk explains, "My boss and I have a deal that if either of us runs away, the other will have to pay off both their debts." Jisuk says Erin knew that if she ran away, I would have to pay her debts too, but she still only thought about herself. Yebun says she will help them pay their debts, but Jisuk says some debts can't be paid with money and leaves. In the next scene, we see Sunwoo. He goes to a restaurant and sees a girl sleeping at a table. He sits down and orders when the girl suddenly wakes up, and her head hits Sunwoo's. Sunwoo sees that it's Yebun. Yebun was drinking alone there. She says she was a little upset, so she came here. They drink and talk together, and during that time, Sunwoo tells her, "You shouldn't trust people immediately." Yebun says, "I find it easier to trust than to doubt," and to prove that she trusts Sunwoo a lot, she was about to tell him her secret, but he stops her and says, "Don't tell me. Who knows when I might change." Yebun had drunk too much and passes out drunk. Her head was about to hit the table when Sunwoo puts his hand in between. Yebun has a vision-like experience in which she sees Jisuk's dead body. Then she suddenly regains consciousness and runs outside. At that time, Sunwoo was in the restroom. He comes out and sees that Yebun has left her phone and gone. Yebun goes straight to the coffee shop from there, where Jisuk was about to leave for a delivery. Yebun sits on her scooter and says, "I need to talk about something, but first you make the delivery." For the delivery, Jisuk goes to a secluded place, and after the delivery, she gestures to Yebun a little distance away and says, "You wait there, I'm coming." Yebun gets off the scooter, and Jisuk leaves her there and takes the scooter. Yebun then starts walking towards her on foot. After walking a short distance, she finds Jisuk's scooter fallen. She starts looking for her everywhere. Fireflies were flying there. Yebun catches a firefly and sees in its memory that someone was following Jisuk. She goes in that direction and sees that the killer in the raincoat stops Jisuk and hits her on the head with a helmet. She reaches there, cuts the rope on Jisuk's hand, and in the process, her own hand also gets cut. Then she takes her and runs from there, and they both hide in a place. Yebun asks Jisuk if she saw her attacker's face, but she says no. Yebun tries to see by touching her hand but doesn't see anything significant. She thinks of calling the police and realizes she doesn't have her phone. Then she hides Jisuk well there and says, "He won't be able to find you here," and goes to get help herself. Yebun runs to the road. A bus is coming from the other side, so she stands in front of it to stop it. The shaman was also on the bus. He gets off and asks her what happened. At that moment, she remembers that the killer is a resident of this city. Now she starts suspecting everyone. Yebun goes straight to the police station where she sees Moon. She tells Moon to come with her and says that Jisuk is in danger. But when they both reach that place, they see that the killer has killed Jisuk. Moon suspects Gwangshik. Then they both reach his house where he is lying unconscious. Yebun says, "I hid Jisuk in a place where no one could easily find her. I didn't tell anyone about that place. Then I don't know how the killer found out." Moon tells Yebun, "Maybe the killer has powers like you and Gwangshik." To this, Yebun says that when Gwangshik had touched her, he had seen that on the night of the meteor shower. Besides the two of them, someone else was also there, but he couldn't see who it was. Moon says, "This means the killer must have seen your memories. That's how he knew where Jisuk was hiding." Yebun remembers that between hiding Jisuk and meeting Moon, she had met many people. Moon says that the killer must also know about your power, and he must also know that you can see his crimes by touching him. They now realize that the killer must have kept his eyes closed during every murder so that Yebun couldn't see the murder in his memories. And perhaps that's why there were random cut marks on every victim's body. They both then go to the police station, where Yebun tells the names of all the people she had met. First of all, she had met the shaman, but Yebun says he can't be the killer. After that, Yebun had met Okwe's dad, Assemblyman Cha, her grandfather Jamo, Detective Moon, and Sun Woo, and had some kind of physical contact with all of them. They didn't suspect any of them, but Moon says, "For now, these are our suspects." He tells Yebun to touch everyone, but Yebun's hand was injured, so he says Gwangshik will help her. On the other side, we see Yebun's grandfather. He was looking at a file which had many paper cuttings and also a photo, seeing which he gets emotional. The next day, he meets Young Mook and gives him that file, saying that it is related to a case he has been investigating for many years. He tells him to continue the investigation and also says something else. After he leaves, Young Mook was looking at the same file. In it, he sees a photo of the old assemblyman in which Cha was also there. This city of lies will be infamous. The next day, Gwangshik comes to help them. Moon gives his hands a good massage. Then he tells Gwangshik that besides him and Yebun, the person who has power is the serial killer. Therefore, he should touch Yebun again and see if any more details can be found about the man who was there on the night of the meteor shower. He then touches Yebun's hand again and sees her memories. Then they both take him to their farm where they both were on the night of the meteor shower. Recalling the man's shadow, he says, "He was of average height, taller than me, but shorter than you." Moon drops Yebun home and leaves. Just then, Sun Woo arrives there and says that he has decorated his workshop. Yebun wanted to go and see, so Sun Woo says that they will go after his shift is over. Then Moon and Guangxik were sitting outside the convenience store where Sun Woo worked. Sun Woo comes out and suddenly Moon realizes that Sun Woo's height matches the man from the meteor shower night. After Guangxik leaves, he goes inside and asks the man working there, "Was Sun Woo here on election day?" The man says he had taken the whole day off. Coming back home, Moon sees that the lights in Yebun's room were off. So he calls her and asks where she is. Yebun says she is in her room and is going to sleep. Moon tells her to turn on the lights, so she says the lights are broken. Then she makes an excuse of being busy and cuts the phone. Moon goes to the shaman's place. Upon asking, the shaman says that he has gone to his workshop. Actually, Yebun had also gone to his workshop with Sun Woo. There, Sun Woo picks up the same killer's knife and moves towards her. Meanwhile, Moon had found out that Yebun was with Sun Woo, so he rushes toward the workshop. He sees Sun Woo holding a knife and coming towards Yebun. When he goes inside and looks, he sees an apple in his other hand, which he is cutting with the knife. Sun Woo asks Moon, "What are you doing here so late at night?" Moon says, "I had to ask something and was passing through the area, so I came in." Then he asks, "What were you doing on election day? I heard you took the day off." Sun Woo says, "You think I'm the killer?" Just then, Yebun remembers that Sun Woo was drinking with her that day. Sun Woo explains, "After drinking, I came here to the workshop because my order was about to be delivered." Moon and Yebun return. Yebun says, "You suspected an innocent person for no reason." Moon says, "The murders started after he came to this city. It's natural to be suspicious." Yebun says, "You shifted around the same time too, right?" Moon says, "Yes, but I'm a police officer and I don't think he's right. You should stay away from him." In the next scene, Moon calls Yebun and Guangxik to his house for help with the industrial area case. Moon says, "The killer is psychic, and the killer also knows that Yebun is psychic, which is why the killer committed the murders blindfolded, so Yebun couldn't see the crime memories." He then says, "You two are already exposed, so go into hiding. I will investigate the suspect myself." Then all the people there have a meeting about whether to hold the annual event or not. Many were against it because a serial killer is on the loose. Then the assemblyman says the event should happen. It's the best chance for tourism. Then Moon finds out about the event. He tells Yebun and Guangxik that since so many people will be coming, they have to catch the psychic killer. The plan is that the killer can hide the murder memories by being blindfolded, but he can't hide the memory of coming to Guangxik's farm on the night of the meteor shower. He tells them both to focus on that memory, to find out who was near the pillar. Yebun asks, "The killer recognizes us. Why would he let us touch him?" Moon says he will run a milk tea stall and offer a free foot massage. If the killer avoids the massage, he will become a suspect. Then it turns out that the shaman is setting up a fortune-telling booth at the event, so Yebun comes up with a plan. Then the event day arrives. Moon gives everyone instructions. Catching the psychic is important, but protecting your own memories is also important. He warns Yebun, "Sun Woo is the prime suspect. You melt when you see him. You will tell me who the suspect is via walkie-talkie." Yebun hides in the shaman's booth. The shaman has made a chair with a hole in it. Yebun hides under it and will be able to touch every person and see their memory. When Young Mook sits on the chair, Yebun finds out that her grandfather has given him a file to investigate. She gets a little worried. Then Sun Woo comes to the event. He takes milk tea from Guangxik's booth. Guangxik offers a free massage, but he refuses. After Sun Woo leaves, Baydok comes to Guangxik's booth for a free massage. While massaging, Guangxik sees in his memory that on the night of the meteor shower, Sun Woo was going towards the farm. He tells Moon. Moon then changes the plan. Now they will try to see Sun Woo in people's memories. Yebun does the same. Then, in someone's memory, she sees Sun Woo following the assemblyman. Young Mook was leaving the event with Yebun's Aunt Young when he finds the same file in the car, which had his sister's, Yebun's mom's, protest photos in her last article. She was investigating the industrial case, but died. Okay Hui brings the assemblyman to the shaman's booth. Yebun touches him and sees. He had gone to Guangxik's farm to talk to his father about buying the farm, but he was refused. That's why he was outside the farm during the meteor shower. But in his memory, she sees the shaman inside the farm at the time of the meteor shower. Then another memory comes to her. Her mom was unconscious in the car, and Cha was standing outside the car watching. Yebun then remembers her mom's accident. Meanwhile, Guangxik, on the pretext of a massage, touches the shaman's foot. In the memory, he sees that he had accidentally reached the farm, but another man was standing near the pillar. Guangxik recognizes him and runs to Moon, saying Sun Wu was standing near the pillar at the time of the meteor shower. He tells her about this, and Okui says, now that you know, why don't you arrest him? Otherwise, he might murder someone again. Moon says he doesn't have any evidence, so he can't arrest him. In the next scene, we see Sun Wu at the shaman's stall. Moon arrives, sits on a chair himself, and gestures for Sun Wu to sit on the ghost chair so Yebun can touch him, saying, I need to talk about something. But Sun Wu refuses to sit. Moon then says, I don't understand one thing. After graduating from Hancock University, why are you doing a part-time job at a convenience store here? You don't even have any connection to this place. Sun Wu says in a serious tone, because I wanted to murder people. Then he says, is that what you wanted to hear? After all, why are you so suspicious of me? I haven't even done anything. Moon says, because I'm a detective. In the next scene, Yebun has come to her mom's grave. But she asks Aunt Young, what was my mom like? She explains that she was always ready to help everyone, bringing their stories to the forefront. She was a very good journalist. Yebun then asks, then why did she commit suicide? She didn't leave a note either. Not for me, not for you people. She didn't give any hint either. Young says that Mr. Cha had told them she was going through some difficulties. Yebun asks if they were close, and Young says, yes, very close. In fact, Cha even had a crush on your mom at one point. In the next scene, we see that Young Muk, while researching Dr. Bong's case, meets a lady who was a victim of the Red Development scam at that time. She and other victims used to protest back then. Young Muk shows her a photo from the file and asks, do you know this person? The lady says, yes, she was the chairperson of the protest committee. She was a single mom and sometimes used to bring her son along. Then we see Ye Bun and Young, who return to see Assemblyman Cha, leaving after meeting Dr. Bang. Then Ye Bun asks him, I found out that you were close to my mom. She directly asks, why did my mom commit suicide? Cha says that your mom was very strong on the outside, but she had depression for which she was also taking medication. The story she was working on was affecting her from within. She used to share it with me, but I was busy at that time. I didn't even see her before her death. Ye Bun is surprised because in her memories, she had seen Cha outside her mom's car. Inside, Young asks Dr. Bong, why did you give the articles and documents to Young Muk? What really happened back then? What are you hiding? Dr. Bang says, your sister didn't commit suicide. Then we see Moon, who had requested Sun Wu's details. It mentioned that his dad was dead and his mom was missing. Moon then reaches the shaman's house where Sun Wu lives and, while searching for evidence in his room, finds a photo of Sun Wu's childhood. Just then, hearing someone's arrival, Moon hides behind the door. The shaman comes there and was looking for something. Moon starts to leave quietly, but the shaman sees him. He asks him, do you think he is the killer? Moon asks, how do you know? He says, why would a detective sneak into someone's house? On the other side, we see Guangxik, who, upon seeing Sun Wu leave, follows him to his workshop. From there, he messages Moon. Moon tells him to get out of there immediately. Guangxik sees that Sun Wu is asleep inside, so he messages that they have a good chance. Moon replies, this is dangerous, get out immediately, and leaves the shaman's house himself. But Guangxik, not listening to Moon, goes inside and slowly moves towards Sun Wu. He was about to touch him, but before that, Sun Wu wakes up. Seeing his eyes open, Guangxik is shocked and steps back. The cabinet behind him falls on top of him. In the next scene, Moon runs to the hospital. He sees a man completely covered in bandages. He shouts loudly, I told you not to go alone. Just then, Guangxik comes from behind and puts a hand on his shoulder. Moon was mistaking someone else for Guangxik. He then explains that his hand is injured and he will have to keep a bandage on it for some time. Moon asks what happened. Sun Wu was also there, so Guangxik explains, I went to meet Sun Wu. He was sleeping, and when I went to wake him, a cabinet was about to fall, but Sun Wu stopped it. Otherwise, I would have been more injured, and it was he who brought me to the hospital. The next day, Young comes to meet Young Mok and says that she doubts Yebun's mom, Miyok, committed suicide. Young Mok says if they follow the information in the file, they will find the reason for Miyok's death. He takes Young to a place which was an empty piece of land. He says during the redevelopment, these properties were the most expensive. Assemblyman Yoon had bought them cheap before the redevelopment. Then when rumors of a tourist zone started, Yoon sold the land for a high price. Miyok had started writing articles on the redevelopment then. Young says she remembers her sister had told her not to let their dad buy any land. Young Mook says only your sister was writing articles in favor of the victims. Then they both look at the victim list, but they are shocked to see that all the land is now in Assemblyman Cha's name. On the other side, Moon reaches a place and looking at Sun Wu's childhood photo, realizes that this is the same place. He calls Yebun and asks, does Sun Wu have any connection to this city? Yebun says, he told me his mom is from here, but this is his first time here. It was clear from the photo that he had lied. Moon warns Yebun, stay away from Sunwoo. Then we see Young and Young Mook, who go to the last man's house on the list. They ask him how Cha bought all the other land. The man says people bought land in the greed of redevelopment, but when the project was canceled, the prices fell. Cha paid more than the market price and bought everyone's land. People had sold at a loss. Young shows him Miyok's photo, and the man recognizes her and says she was very close to his committee's chairperson. There were rumors that she had run away with the compensation money. Next, we see Assemblyman Cha coming to his office at night. Someone was following him. Ye-bun was there. She sees the killer in the raincoat about to kill Cha. She is shocked to see the shaman in the raincoat. Ye-bun calls his name. The shaman was already quite nervous. Ye-bun steps forward and takes the knife from his hand. Then we see that, taking him outside, Ye-bun asks the shaman, "What were you doing?" He says, "I was going to kill Cha." He explains that during the redevelopment scheme, Cha had convinced his dad to sell their land too. His dad was very poor and invested all his money in the land, thinking that at least his son would benefit. But nothing of the sort happened, and his dad was left with nothing. He was in the army at that time. When he returned, his dad had committed suicide. Because of his death, his mom also died. Going back home, Ye-bun searches for articles related to redevelopment, but finds nothing. So she goes to the local library and searches there, where she finds several articles written by her mom. One article said that an associate of Assemblyman Yoon was about to testify against him in court. Then, in the next scene, Young Mook tells Moon that many years ago, Assemblyman Yoon had started a redevelopment scheme. Assemblyman Cha was with him at that time. The chairperson of the committee of victims of that campaign had suddenly disappeared, and Sun Woo is her son. Moon now understands that Sun Woo shifted because of Cha. Young Mook then asks Moon what he knows. Moon says that Sun Woo is somehow connected to the murders happening here. Then Moon returns home to find Ye-bun waiting for him. She tells Moon to look at the old case files and explains that in 2005, a car had fallen into the sea from a port. That death was ruled a suicide, and the person who died. Moon goes and looks for the case file and finds out that some sedatives were found in the victim's body, but the quantity was low, so the cause of death was stated as drowning. The death scenario described that Miyok was taken to the carport and the car was put on brakes. Then, after taking sleeping pills, her body relaxed, and the car rolled into the water on its own. Moon tells all this to Ye-bun, who asks, why did the police conclude it was a suicide? It could have been an accident too. Moon explains, the accident was declared a suicide based on Assemblyman Cha's statement. Cha had stated that Mayok was very troubled, and her relationship with her dad was not good. Cha had said she was taking medication for depression. Ye-bun asks, what would have happened if Cha hadn't given a statement? Moon says, then the police would have considered other possibilities. Ye-bun comes home to find Cha sitting there. He was quite drunk. He jokingly asks Ye-bun, why do you spend so much time with Detective Moon? Ye-bun doesn't answer. As Cha is about to leave, Ye-bun's grandfather goes to see him off. Cha starts saying that Ye-bun is just like Miyok in looks and personality. He says something more, and Dr. Bang can't stop himself and shouts, don't talk about Miyok. Cha still doesn't stop and says he should have paid attention to her, then maybe she wouldn't have committed suicide. Dr. Bang shouts that Miyok didn't commit suicide, and Cha pushes him. Seeing this, Ye-bun's dog starts barking loudly. Hearing the noise, she comes down and Dr. Bang says nothing happened. Later, Ye-bun sees the conversation between her grandpa and Cha in her dog's memory. Then she asks him directly, Mom didn't commit suicide, did she? And you suspected Mr. Cha, that's why you've been around him all these years. Dr. Bang says, you don't need to worry. This is not your mom's matter, but my daughter's matter. If she hadn't met your dad, she would have been with me. Ye-bun also says angrily, fine, you think about your daughter. I'll think about my mom. We're not family anyway. In the next scene, Ye-bun tells Ok-hoi everything. She says if she has a doubt, she should touch him and see. Then, Ok-hoi makes a plan. She meets Assemblyman Cha and talks about the election campaign, and then offers Cha a drink. The plan was that they would get Cha so drunk that he would pass out, so Ye-bun would get a chance to touch him. The plan is successful, but along with Cha, Ok-hoi also gets drunk and passes out. Then Ye-bun touches Cha and sees everything. She sees that Cha was about to testify against Assemblyman Yoon and had given Ye-bun's mom the evidence. But Assemblyman Yoon found out. He tempted him that he could become the assemblyman here. In return, he just had to return the evidence or do something so that Miyok couldn't use the evidence. Ye-bun sees that Cha then mixed sedatives in Miyok's tea, and when she passed out, he pushed the car into the water. Then we see Baidok, who was keeping an eye on Sun Woo. Suddenly he realizes that Sun Woo is not in the store. He calls Moon and tells him, Moon immediately reaches Assemblyman Cha's office and sees that someone has stabbed Cha with a knife, and a little distance away, Dr. Bang is lying unconscious. The murder weapon is in his hand. From there, Moon goes to the workshop and sees that Sun Woo was busy with his work. Moon then goes to the hospital and meets Ye Bun, where Dr. Bang was admitted. He says if we want to find out what happened, we will have to use your powers, but Ye Bun refuses. In the next scene, Moon goes and tells all the detectives that the serial killer and Assemblyman Cha's all materials have to be removed from here because an assemblyman has died. So investigators from Major Crimes Division will come and remove us from the investigation. Everyone packs all the materials, and Moon takes them to their house, which becomes a temporary headquarters. The news was showing that Assemblyman Cha's murder was committed by Dr. Bang. Then the murderer tried to commit suicide by stabbing himself with a knife. Moon checks Dr. Bang's medical records at the hospital and meets Ye Bun. She also suspected that maybe her grandpa had murdered Cha. Moon says for 17 years, he has been trying to prove that his daughter didn't commit suicide, so why would he kill Cha? Then he explains that Dr. Bang had Parkinson's disease, which made his hand tremble. He couldn't even hold a knife properly, let alone stab someone. Ye Bun then goes and checks his room and finds Parkinson's medicines there. She finds photos of herself and her mom there related to school. She then checks her own album. She remembers that her mom had shown her a photo and said to never lose this photo. Ye Bun realizes that her grandfather was also standing in the background of the photo, and that's why her mom had gotten emotional at that time. She understands that even without being in contact, her grandfather missed his daughter. Ye Bun then goes to the hospital so she can touch him and find out the truth. At that moment, he grabs her hand, and there is a flashback scene where Ye Bun is selected for veterinary school. He doesn't react in front of her but goes inside and gets very emotional because he was very happy with Ye Bun's achievement. Ye Bun cries a lot seeing her grandpa's condition, and before her eyes, he passes away. The news was showing that a new suspect has been arrested for the murder of Assemblyman Cha, who is the shaman. Moon takes her to Dr. Bang's neurologist, who explains that Dr. Bang had Parkinson's disease, and that too, stage 3. Due to this illness, his hand used to tremble constantly, so he couldn't stab anyone with a knife. This proves Dr. Bang's innocence. The next scene is Dr. Bang's funeral, where everyone arrives to pay their respects. The shaman arrives there and starts crying very loudly that when he had shifted to the city, everyone used to look at him strangely because he was a shaman. But Dr. Bang used to behave with him like a normal person. Then we see that Moon's boss tells him that his team will no longer work on the serial killer case. So Moon tells the other detectives that we will continue our investigation, just won't let anyone know. Sun Woo arrives the latest at the funeral. Ye Bun doesn't say anything, but Sun Woo himself gives the reason for being late, saying that a body resembling his mom had been found, so he was called for identification. Sun Woo says he used to blame Cha for his mom's condition. He felt like killing him but would stop himself, thinking that killing him wouldn't bring his mom back. On the other side, we see Guang Shik, who secretly comes towards the shaman's house. He touches his hand, then goes straight to Moon and tells him that 2 days ago, he had seen the shaman going to Assemblyman Cha's office with a knife. He wanted to kill him. The detective then comes to the shaman's house and, showing him a photo of the knife, asks if he has such a knife. The shaman says yes. In the next scene, during questioning, the shaman says that he has thrown the knife away. Ye Bun tells Moon that the shaman had gone to the office with a knife, but before he could go inside, she had stopped him and they had returned together. Then a man says that he had seen the shaman at 8 p.m. Then Sun Woo says that when he went to the workshop at 9 p.m., the shaman was sleeping there. Therefore, the shaman is released. Then Sun Woo tells Moon that he had seen Dr. Bang going towards the office and he was having trouble walking, so he went to drop him there. Then Ye Bun touches Sun Woo and sees that Sun Woo was telling the truth. He had dropped Dr. Bang at the office and had gone straight to the workshop from there. He had not committed the murder. Then Moon and Ye Bun start suspecting Guang Shik because on the night of the meteor shower, he had seen someone near the tower. On the other side, we see Guang Shik following a man who was also wearing a raincoat. He goes behind a house from where only the sound of a knife is heard. Then, when Guang Shik comes forward, we see that blood was flowing from his body. Meanwhile, Moon was looking for Guang Shik when he sees a man in a raincoat. Moon calls out to him and he starts running. While running, he reaches a place where the path was blocked ahead. The killer's face wasn't visible, but Moon definitely understands that this is not Guang Shik. Then the killer attacks Moon with his knife and cuts Moon's hand and runs away from there. Moon runs after him again, but he disappears near the shaman's house. At that moment, Sun Woo comes out from inside and, seeing blood flowing from Moon's hand, asks what happened, but he doesn't tell him anything. On the other side, Ye Bun hears Guang Shik's voice from outside. I figured it out. Ye Bun sees he was covered in blood and falls as soon as he enters. With great difficulty, he says one word to Yebun, black, and then he dies. Then Yebun calls Moon and brings him over. He checks Guangxik's pulse, and he was dead. In the next scene, Aaron tells Moon that Guangxik had left the house, saying he needed to check something. One thing Moon can't understand is why a dying Guangxik went to Yebun. Yebun returns home to see Moon standing outside, and blood was still flowing from his hand. Yebun takes him inside and bandages him, then tells him that Guangxik wanted to tell her something, but he could only say black. Moon thinks he must have found a clue in the killer's blackout memories, a clue that the killer was trying to hide. Until now, Moon and Yebun only knew that blackout meant the person's eyes were closed. Moon thinks that the killer is using some trick that makes it look like a blackout in the victim's memories, even when his eyes are open. After Moon leaves, Yebun thinks, I have to touch Sunwoo, because the last time she had touched Sunwoo, she had seen blackouts. She calls Sunwoo and asks to meet. He himself tells her to touch him and says that he can accept other people's suspicion, but not hers. To this, Yebun says, I trust that you are not the killer. Later, when they compare the knife marks on Guangxik with previous victims, the marks were very different. In the cases of Assemblyman Cha and Guangxik, it seemed that the killer had attacked with open eyes because the knife was stabbed at vital points. In the next scene, Sunwoo tells Yebun, if you stay with me, no one will suspect you. Yebun agrees. In the next scene, Yebun comes to Sunwoo's workshop. At that time, Sunwoo was looking at a knife with blood on it in a box. Just then, Yebun comes inside. Seeing Yebun, he smiles, but seeing the shaman with Yebun, he immediately closes his box. Yebun notices this. The shaman says that he saw Yebun coming inside alone, so he came to drop her off. Sunwoo brings tea for both of them and deliberately spills it on the shaman. Then he says that he can go to the washroom of the nearby church and clean himself. But the shaman didn't want to leave Yebun alone with Sunwoo, so he asks Sunwoo to come along too. After both of them leave, Yebun goes and opens the box and is terrified to see the knife in it. Sunwoo returns after leaving the shaman and sees that Yebun was leaving from there. He takes the same knife and goes after her. Yebun starts running, so he also runs after her. While running, Yebun stops upon seeing a man wearing a raincoat. By then, Sunwoo also reaches, and grabbing her hand, starts running from there. But that man jumps on Sunwoo, pushes him down, and takes his knife to kill Yebun. But Sunwoo somehow stops him and tells Yebun to run. Yebun runs from there and hides in a place, and from there she calls Moon and tells him to come quickly, the serial killer is here. After some time, Yebun gathers some courage, takes a weapon, and goes to help Sunwoo, only to find that the killer has killed Sunwoo. He then moves towards her but steps back at the sound of police sirens. Then we see that a crowd of police and forensics arrives. Detective Kang asks Yebun, I heard you were with the victim, so did you see the killer's face? She says no. In the next scene, Hui tells Yebun that the shaman is performing a ritual for Sunwoo so that his soul can find peace. If you want to give something for the ritual, you can go and give it. Then Yebun buys shoes for Sunwoo's ritual. Moon sees Yebun on the road and goes to her saying, I figured it out. The killer must be wearing sunglasses while committing murder. Wearing sunglasses in the dark would allow him to see faintly. Yebun takes the shoes and reaches the shaman's place and sees that the shaman was wearing sunglasses. Without saying anything, she touches the shaman and sees in his memory that all the people who were murdered were killed by the shaman. The shaman says, looks like you understand the use of sunglasses now. The shaman places a mirror in front, and Yebun turns on her phone's recording. The shaman then shows her memories in Yebun's eyes and then takes her phone and turns off the recording. From this, Yebun understands that the shaman's power is in his eyes. He can see memories just by looking into someone's eyes. Then we see a flashback of how he had killed Sunwoo. Actually, that night, Moon was following him. While running, he had entered Sunwoo's house, and Sunwoo was leaving the house at that time to throw out the trash. Sunwoo's hand was injured by the shaman's knife. Sunwoo also understood that the shaman's power is in his eyes. That day, Sunwoo had called Yebun to his workshop to tell her about the knife. But seeing the shaman there suddenly, he accidentally made eye contact. Then the shaman saw his memories and understood that Sunwoo knew everything. So he killed Sunwoo. The shaman tells Yebun, if you want to tell the police, go and tell them. But who will believe you? The shaman then tells Yebun that he didn't want to kill her grandfather, but he came at the wrong time. So he had to kill him. But he is very sad about it, and that's why he will let her live. The next day, Moon comes to talk to Yebun. The shaman sees them talking, comes there, and by looking into both their eyes, checks that Yebun hasn't told Moon anything. In the next scene, we see that Jang Muk pretends to be drunk at the police station to distract the detective so that Moon can take Sunwoo's phone from the evidence. Actually, Yebun had seen the shaman killing Sunwoo in his memories. At that time, the shaman had said a phrase in Arabic which meant, your birthday. Yebun understood that he had told her his phone's password, and when he had come to meet Moon, he had slipped a message into his hand which said that the shaman is the killer, and also had Sunwoo's phone password. Moon now unlocks Sun Woo's phone with this password. In the next scene, we see that the detective arrives to arrest the shaman for all the serial killings. Actually, when the shaman was killing Sun Woo had turned on the recording on his phone. Then he had called the shaman's name and asked him if he had killed all those people, to which the shaman had said yes, and all of this was recorded. The detective's investigation reveals that his first victim was his wife, whom he had killed in Australia. Then Moon arrives at the police station. The shaman looks into his eyes and knows where he has come from. Moon shouts at him, "Don't look into my eyes," and then asks why he killed his wife and the others. The shaman explains that his wife was cheating on him, so he killed her, and he killed the others just for fun. Moon says, "Be ready to pay for your mistake. You will have to spend the rest of your life in jail now." The shaman says, "Let me go from here, or someone else's life will be at stake." Then Yebun finds out that Okhoi is missing. So she reaches the police station and shouts at the shaman, asking about Okhoi. The shaman says nothing, so Yebun touches him and sees in his memories that he had kidnapped Okhoi and taken her to a secluded place. In the next scene, we see that Okhoi was lying unconscious somewhere with a gag in her mouth and her hands tied. Meanwhile, the detective enters the interrogation room and sees that Yebun has a knife to the shaman's throat. She tells him to take the shaman outside and tells Moon to drive the car. Moon tries to stop her. All this was being orchestrated by the shaman. In return, he was going to tell them about Okhoi. Just then, a lot of thugs arrive and hit Moon from behind. Beck had also come with them. Beck's men beat Moon badly and tie him and Yebun up in a place. The shaman had made a deal with Beck that in exchange for Moon, he would send him to China on his boat. But now he asks him for money. So the shaman looks into his eyes and tells him his secrets. Beck asks, "How do you know this?" The shaman says, "I have power. I can see others' memories by looking into their eyes. And the girl with Moon has a similar power. She can see someone's memory by touching their body." Beck gives the shaman a beating and then goes to Yebun and asks if she really has powers. Yebun says nothing. Beck tells his man to test and check and says that if she doesn't have powers, they will use her like the other girls. He tells them to take Moon to some doctor and says, after taking everyone out, Yebun tries to lift Moon and says, "What do we do now?" Moon tells Yebun to touch him and see the memories of the National Police University. A few minutes later, Beck's men come and take Moon. Then another man comes to Yebun with an injection. But before he can administer the injection, Yebun takes the injection from the man's hand and stabs it into him. Actually, by touching Moon, she had seen his police training memory, where they were taught how to break free from tied ropes in a dangerous situation. Yebun touches the man and sees where Moon has been taken. And, hiding, she reached there and sees that some doctor about to do something to Moon. The doctor, seeing Yebun, moves towards her, so Yebun picks up a nearby rod and starts hitting him. At this time, Baek arrives there with his men. He tells Yebun, "You definitely have the power to see everything, but you missed the CCTV." Moon fights everyone and then beats Baek too. Then Yebun goes to find Okhoi at the place shown in the shaman's memory. Then she sees an underground storage in which Okhoi was lying unconscious. Then she is taken to the hospital. Then we see the next day's scene. The shaman comes to this boat captain. The captain tells the shaman to hide in the boat. Then he calls Moon and tells him that the shaman has come here. But when Moon and Yebun reach there, the shaman has already fled from there. Then they both go to find him. Meanwhile, the shaman, while running, sees a man who was leaving his house with luggage. The shaman talks to him on some pretext and sees his house's lock code in his eyes and then hides in his house. Moon and Yebun reach there but don't see the shaman entering the house. They see some children playing there. Yebun, on the pretext of a game, touches their bodies and sees the shaman hiding in a house in one child's memory. Both of them run towards that house. The shaman also sees them from the window and runs away from there with a knife. On the way, they see an injured man whom the shaman had stabbed with a knife. Yebun touches him and sees in his memory that the shaman had left a message for them that if you guys keep following me, I will kill the next person. Moon calls the paramedics to report the injured man and then goes after the shaman with Yebun. On the way, they find another man lying down. They think the shaman must have attacked him too. Moon goes to call the paramedics on the other side, but it was the shaman. Moon comes back with the paramedics and sees that no one was there. He goes towards the boat and sees that the shaman had brought Yebun there and had a knife to Yebun's throat. The shaman says, "I will send her back after reaching China." Yebun was scared, so Moon signals her to remember the police training she had seen in his memory. Yebun understands and pushes the shaman back and runs forward herself. This was enough time for Moon. He jumps on the shaman, hits him, and puts handcuffs on him. In the next scene, we see that everything in the city has returned to normal, and everyone is busy with their daily routine. Moon gets a promotion and is at the station to go to Seoul. Then we see Yebun running towards the bus. Arriving there, she sees that all the buses have left. She was getting sad when she hears Moon's voice from behind. She asks, "Why didn't you go?" Moon says he will take the later bus. They sit and talk about meeting in Seoul if they ever make a plan. Then we see a scene from 8 months later. Yebun was now appearing on TV shows. She was invited to a talk show where the host tells the audience about Yebun, that she can communicate with all kinds of animals. As a demo, a man brings his dog and says that his dog runs away with shoes and gets angry when he tries to take them. Yebun touches the dog and sees its memory and explains that its first owner had worn shoes and left one day and never came back. That's why the dog runs away with shoes. The man confirms that the dog is adopted and the first owner had died in a car accident. Then Yebun goes to meet Moon. Yebun tries to talk, but Moon keeps getting calls because of a case. Yebun gets a little irritated and then says, "If I help with this case, you'll get some free time, right?" Moon initially doesn't want to take help, but then agrees and sends Yebun to jail as a prisoner. He tells her about another prisoner, Lee Jung, who was involved in drug trafficking. Yebun's job is to touch Lee Jung and find out who is in charge now in her place. But the problem was that she was a very dangerous type of woman. Yebun tries. In the next scene, during a soccer tournament in the jail, Yebun learns that Lee Jung's team needs a new goalkeeper because their old one was just released. Yebun offers to be the goalkeeper in her place. Then we see the match in which Yebun is the goalkeeper, but when the ball comes, instead of stopping the goal, she touches Lee Jung's body. Lee Jung gets angry and, grabbing Yebun by the collar, was about to hit her on the head when Moon comes and puts his hand in between. Actually, Yebun didn't know, but Moon was around her as a guardian for her safety. Moon asks Yebun if she found out who is in charge of the drug trafficking. Yebun says yes. Then Moon tells Yebun to come. Yebun asks, "Where are we going?" Moon says, "First, let's go to a restaurant. Then we'll go to see a movie." Yebun blushes and says, "You mean we're going on a date?" Lee Jung interrupts them and says, "I can't let you go from here." She calls her gang, so Moon grabs Yebun's hand and runs from there. And with this, the drama ends.